Hello everyone, welcome back. Today's Reddit stories are from r/TalesFromTechSupport with a twist. I compiled heartwarming stories from our IT guys. Our first story, the hug heard around the company. I was handed a laptop by an angry executive early this morning, with him complaining that his laptop had locked up again. Normally, we have a ticketing system in place for any and all tech issues. However, when an executive wants something, he bypasses the system because of rank has its privileges. So, I go through the normal routine of diagnosis, and through my efforts, I see that the issue is simply bad RAM. I replace the RAM and take the unit back to the executive. He tells me he refuses to take the unit unless I have made 100% sure that everything wrong with it is fixed. Internally, I wanted to punch this man, but I held it in and simply asked him what other issues he was having. I pulled out a notepad. He ran through a load of issues that all screamed, "Just run freaking Kellner to me," so I took his unit back to my desk. After going through and cleaning out BS installed programs used literally once and never again, and cleaning out junk data, I found that a folder in his roaming directory was reading 12 gigabytes but was hidden. I logged in with my credentials and enabled viewing hidden or protected files. I saw that the hidden folder was from 2014. Basically, it was just a bunch of pictures and appeared to be a temp folder created by one of the old programs I removed, some kind of picture manager or similar. Normally, when we see personal pictures on a machine, we are supposed to delete them immediately. No one ever does this, as we are not that big of jerks in the IT department. Plus, this guy was an executive, so I decided to move the pictures to his desktop under a folder I created called Old Pics. I took the laptop to him and informed him about the pictures, telling him I left it up to him to decide if he wanted them deleted or not. He thanked me for my time, and I went back to work. About an hour later, he and his wife, who had come up to join him for lunch, came over to my desk. He seemed very happy, and she was crying. Now, normally, when I have nothing to do and a boss comes over, I stand up to greet the way I was raised, I guess. I was not prepared for what followed and was totally shocked by the outcome. The lady wanted to thank me for finding the pictures, and the executive reached out to shake my hand, thanking me profusely before pulling me into a hug in front of the entire IT department. I awkwardly hugged him back, and he let me go, embarrassed. My eyes went wide in shock, totally unprepared for this extremely out-of-character moment from this guy. Barely able to hold back tears, his wife told me that the pictures I recovered were thought to be lost. In 2012, their 4-year-old son had died of leukemia, and the pictures I recovered were taken right before his diagnosis at 3 years of age. Because of a house fire a few years ago, they thought they lost every last photo of their son. Apparently, those were the photos I had recovered. His wife reached out to hug me, and everyone in the IT department stared at their screens hard with puffy eyes. None of us were expecting this kind of emotional event today. My boss came out of his office to personally thank me and forwarded an email chain to me ahead of a company-wide email that the CEO sent out, basically retelling the tale while naming me personally. He threw in words about striving for excellence and the unexpected results of everyday dedication. I had to turn off my Skype for business as the attaboys kept coming in one after the other. My boss told me to take my lunch early since the flood of messages was making it hard to do my job. Edit. Post this before lunch one day. Didn't log into Reddit for a bit. Realized the post went nuclear. RIP inbox. Thanks for the gold, you kind Redditors. Our next story is, this one's a simple one, but I can't get it out of my head. I work in a store that offers technical support for consumer-level technology. A few days ago, I had an elderly gentleman that we'll call Pete, name changed for privacy. Our receptionist made him a walk-in appointment earlier that day, and I ended up taking it. When I opened it all up, the only notes I saw were, third-party software, hard of hearing. I walked up to Pete and greeted him, noticing he was staring at my lips as if to read them. Then, I asked if he knew American Sign Language, ASL. I've been trying to learn ASL as a side hobby for a few months now. Pete signed yes, and we continued the conversation in Sign. Turns out, the issue was with Skype, which kept crashing on his roughly 5-year-old tablet, and he'd been having difficulty video calling his wife, who is deaf. She lives on a different continent. She had traveled there for a temporary work opportunity and would be there for 2 years. This being the halfway point, it had now been 1 year since Pete had seen his wife. Skype was the only way they both knew how to communicate efficiently long distance, as neither were comfortable with email or other text-based services. As I verified that he knew his password and made sure there was a backup of his device, Pete and I signed back and forth, his face completely lit up. I felt so good to be able to, albeit slowly, speak with him in his language and give him the time he deserved, even if his reason for visiting had little to do with our physical product. Once everything was verified and backed up, I uninstalled Skype, reinstalled it, and had Pete sign in. We used Skype's test call to ensure it wouldn't crash, as it would immediately upon call creation before. The test call went through fine. Sweet. I looked down to write a few extra notes and began to hear some coughs. I looked up, and there was Pete, crying while waving to his wife through Skype. Pete had called her, and she picked up. He introduced me to her and told me it had been 3 weeks since they'd last heard from each other. I stepped away to give him a moment alone. It's moments like these that keep me going as a technician. Even though I barely touched Pete's tablet, fixing it made me feel like a hero. It's been a few days, and I can still see his smile. Just thought I'd share. Thanks for reading. Our next story. My data hasn't been working for 20 minutes, and I want compensation. So, I had a customer call me in mobile tech support about his data not working for 20 minutes. Pretty quickly, I figured out why. He had accidentally turned off his data in the phone menu. This happens a lot, but usually, the customer just says, "Oops, silly me." However, this customer started demanding compensation for his time without service and was being quite rude about it. After a couple of minutes, he still wasn't accepting that it was his own mistake, not an issue on our end. I got an idea and told him I was going to speak to my manager. I went to my manager, explained the situation, and he said the customer was being ridiculous. I replied, "Listen, I have an idea. Are you okay with this?" and explained my plan. He said, "Are you kidding? Let me get on the call monitoring system before you go back. I need to hear this." I went back to the phone, saw my manager give me a thumbs up to proceed, and began. "Right, sir. I just spoke with my manager, and I've managed to arrange something for you. Let's break this down. You pay us £39.99 a month for 3 services, calls, texts, and data. If we divide your bill by 3, that gives us £13.33 for each service. Now, dividing that by 30 days gives us 44 pence per day for your data. You had your data turned off for 20 minutes, but to make things easier, I'll round it up to an hour. So, dividing 44 pence by 24 hours, your compensation comes out to about 1.8 pence. Let's round it up and call it 2 pence. As I explained, I glanced over at my manager, who was covering his mouth, trying not to laugh. The customer then said, Are you having a bloody laugh? No, sir. The math checks out. Fine. Go on then. I'll take it. Edit. Yay. My first gold. Thank you, kind person. Our next story. A good answer for when you are pulled over. I hope you will forgive me for sharing a third-hand story, but I am one of those evil developers, not a support person per se. Still, I thought you might enjoy this tale. This happened to a colleague of a colleague. Our hero is happily speeding along in his car, running a few yellow lights, and generally driving a bit recklessly because he is running late. Eventually, the law catches up to him, and he gets pulled over. Here is how the conversation unfolded. The police officer says, "May I see your driving license, please?" The hero, with a smug grin, responds, "Certainly. Here it is, officer." The officer takes the license, walks back to their motorcycle, and speaks into the radio. The hero says, "It is not going to help you, though." The officer, showing no reaction, asks, "What do you mean?" The hero, now grinning even wider, replies, "The server you need to check it against is down." The officer, still calm, asks, "And why do you say that?" The hero answers, "Because I am the person they called to go on site and fix it." Our hero did not get a fine that day. Instead, he received a police escort to his workplace.